So I'm very pleased today to welcome Dr. Edward Bilotti to our podcast. And I'm excited to talk with you about the work that you do and the website, Webshrink, that we'll get into in a bit. But I know you're a psychiatrist, and I wanted to start by just getting some background a little bit about you and how you first got interested in mental health issues. How far back does that go? And a little bit about your journey to becoming a psychiatrist.
Sure. Well, first, let me say thank you very much for inviting me, Jed. It's a pleasure to be your guest. And um, I think it goes way back. I think as early as high school, I recognized that I had a deep interest in psychology as a subject of study. Then I went to undergraduate college and I majored in psychology, and then later added pre-med. Um, the uh, the thoughts and feelings I was having then were, about having a more holistic sort of understanding and appreciation for what it means to be human, including the biology and the physical aspects. So I thought that um, medical school would afford me that. And when I got to medical school, I went in with an open mind, uh, not ruling out the possibility that I might land in another specialty. Um, but in medical school, you rotate through different specialties. Surgery, internal medicine, pediatrics, etc. Well, when I got to my psychiatry rotation, I immediately knew that I felt at home and these are my people and this is where I belonged. In my humble opinion, I feel like I'm good at it and I love the work and I love working with people. So
Excellent.
I
Well,
later, I mean, I added and I think I added the specialty of addiction medicine
uh-huh.
later for similar reasons. I mean, um, when we talk about substance use,
Yeah.
there's clearly a lot of psychology, there's clearly a lot of psychological and social reasons why people misuse substances. But come on, we're putting chemicals into the body that are reacting with the brain and
Yeah.
causing all sorts of effects. And we can't deny the biology there. So,
It's all connected. It's interesting. When I hear your story, I realize you and I have some overlaps in terms of our own history. My interest began early on when I was a kid, and my father had become increasingly depressed. And at a certain point, when I was just a young kid, 5 years old, he took an overdose of sleeping pills because he become increasingly depressed about not being able to support his family. As I came into the world, and I ended up in a mental hospital. And I grew up kind of wondering what happened to my father and when it would happen to me and what I could do to prevent that. And so my thing was I had planned to go to medical school and become a psychiatrist,
huh.
so I could help people. And did all my undergraduate work and then was accepted in medical school. And I didn't stay very long because I felt that medicine was at the time, this is for me in 1965 when I started medical school, it felt like it just was too narrow and didn't really embrace a range. So I left medical school, went and got a master's degree in social work, and I actually got interested in addiction medicine and started one of the early programs in treating addicts, and then kind of went on from there. So it's interesting with your background and mine. So say a little bit more, if you will, given your background, and I'm sure we share some of the same ideas about what are some of the problems that you've seen in the world of mental health as you've treated people over the years, both in addiction medicine and other aspects that, as you say, are very are interrelated, and where have things gone over the years as you've seen them?
Yeah, well, I think we're all human and we're all trying to survive and succeed in this life. And we face stressors and we all have a slightly different makeup and different resources and different supports and different strengths and weaknesses. And I think the biggest thing for me is just seeing everyone that walks into the office as a whole person, regardless of the reason why they're coming in. Obviously, depression and anxiety are among the most common reasons why people seek treatment. Um, but in this day and age, there's a real tendency to look at diagnoses and labels, and that has certainly has its utility, but I think it's more important to look at first, who is this person and how did they get here?
That's really important and not always practiced in my experience in any of the helping professions that we've kind of gotten, I think, very rigid in some ways in trying to separate and define and diagnose and insurance companies need to diagnose all of those things. And I think
Yes.
sometimes we lose the humanity in the people that that we see, and we need to keep that. And so one of the things I've observed, and I'd be interested in your thoughts on this. It seems to me that there have always been the kind of problems that you've experienced and that you help people with. But it seems to me that the world is changing in ways where the stress levels, the dysfunction, the certainly ways in which people try to escape from the pain and suffering through addictions and other things seems to be increasing. Are you noticing as you look back over kind of your career so far and where things are, does it seems like things are getting worse or more stressful or more difficult for people?
Yeah, there's no doubt. Some people would say, well, every generation has had its problems, and the world's never been perfect, and it's like that song, "We didn't start the fire." But I can't help but feel that the world is becoming more and more complex and fast-paced, and the technology that we have now, and the 24-hour news cycle. I mean, I've had this conversation with many patients over the last few years. you know Suddenly we're in a situation where each of us as individuals finds ourselves having to carry the weight and the stress of every bad thing that's happening everywhere around the globe in real time. That's just too much for one person. And I think the other thing, there have been a lot of changes in our society, since the 60s and 70s in terms of um, division of wealth. And um, one interesting thing, I think, um, look, are there more people with mental health problems now than there were, or are we just more aware of them and we have better ways to help? In the past, people may have been labeled as, oh, he's just a nervous Nelly or a worry ward, or she's just a drunk, or he's just a sad sack. Um, where now we have ways to identify these problems and help people who may be struggling with depression, anxiety, alcohol use, substance use, and I think also stigma has always played a part. In the past, a lot of these things would be kept to oneself or hidden away within a family or a household and not talked about. And while we still have a very long way to go with stigma, I think we have made a lot of inroads in terms of people's willingness to acknowledge and seek help for problems. Um, I am in the process of putting together an episode of a podcast that I just interviewed a couple of really smart people from Canada who worked on some research around nutrition and diet and the role of that in mental health. And interestingly, it seems like there's a correlation between highly processed foods and what we eat, in our typical American diet, and mental health symptoms like anxiety, depression, uh, even psychosis. So, since the 60s and 70s, we've seen a huge increase in the availability and the consumption of highly processed foods. So, diet could also be a factor.
Absolutely. I had, I'm sure you've had experiences similar to this, but one of the reasons that I left medical school when I did was that I was very interested in nutrition and felt there was relationship between health and nutrition. And at least when I went to medical school, there was very little, if any, focus on health and nutrition with health generally, and not to mention mental health. And when I got into, treating addictions, it was very clear to me that uh, a lot of the things that addicts of various flavors, whether alcoholic or drugs or what have you, was their diet and the processed food that they ate and the sugar and all the other things related to that. So I think that's a really I think important thing, and I'd be interested to see more of that. One of the things that I've seen, and again, I'd be interested in your experience, is the number of companies that have come into being in recent times that are at least attempting to bring together providers of mental health services and seekers of mental health, information and help. And it just seems to, I can't tell you how many invitations I get fairly often from a new company or an old company saying, would I be interested in becoming, part of their database and offering my services? It just seems like there's certainly a lot of need, and there certainly seems to be companies that are coming into being or addressing those. What's been your experience? I know, and we'll talk about Webshrink in a bit, but what's been your experience generally about kind of this trend, if you will, towards, new companies springing up to offer connections of one kind or another?
Well, I think that the pandemic took the technology of telehealth
Hmm.
and really fast tracked it into mainstream use.
Hmm.
The technology was there. We had things like Zoom and uh, the ability to do video conferencing over the internet, but its adoption in healthcare and particularly in mental health, I think, um, was very slow, and people weren't quite ready for it yet. But when the pandemic hit, I think it was forced by necessity, that people use this or suspend treatment altogether. And what we've seen is probably a pace that may have taken 5 or 10 years, just almost overnight become a kind of mainstream accepted way of delivering care. And I am all about technology. I love technology. I think it's great. And I think telehealth has provided lots and lots of really positive things and opened up lots of new doors for people to connect with treatment and provide treatment in areas where it may not have been accessible or available before. But what I fear is that, in the race to kind of be the first or be the next big thing or kind of see an opportunity for profit or is that we risk losing something in the value and the importance of therapy. And it's, therapy being a very kind of special, meaningful relationship between two human beings. It's not like calling an Uber ride, it's got to be more than that. And it's like there's fast food, back to the issue of food, but not necessarily about the nutrition in the same way. But just to make an analogy, there's fast food and then there's good, wholesome food, right? And my fear is that I think it would be a big mistake if we lost, if people began to think that, the only therapy is therapy that is convenient and fast and high volume, mass produced. So, you know, I think you're right. There are lots and lots of companies popping up offering therapy in a different way than we've ever heard before. Um, and I guess my answer is there's probably good and bad with that, and
Yeah.
we just need to be careful.
Yeah, I've certainly seen that, and I think it works both ways that people that are seeking help, are need help that really speaks to their full humanity and not just the fast, quick, you got a problem here, we got a solution. And the other side is the providers, the mental health providers and various disciplines, that have spent years training and hopefully have, good experience, but often, are treated just like a quick fix Uber driver, and interchanged, and you do a quick thing here and you easily put in your thing to get billed and boom, 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 and it's quick and easy in some ways, but is it really helpful? And I know you started a company called Webshrink and had an idea for it, if I understand a little bit of your history, before you actually started it. Could you say a little bit about kind of the idea you had when you had the idea, how long that goes back, and what were you thinking of? And what was the idea that eventuated into a word, a name, and then eventually a program. So start with the idea. How did that first come to you, and what were you interested in trying to address at the time?
Sure. Well, in my in my clinical practice, patients would often come in with questions or concerns about something that they had found online. Um, and sometimes it was good information. Uh, and and I encourage people to be empowered and,
Mhm.
do their own research and get the information that they need. Um, but some of it was not good information. Some of it was posts online by anti-psychiatry groups with an agenda, um, by people who may have been disgruntled about some bad experience that they had with a particular treatment or a particular provider. Um, and so it 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 occurred to me that the internet being a kind of free for all, right? Um, can get really cluttered up with a lot of confusing information for people, uh, and that there ought to be a place where people can go and know that they're getting accurate, trustworthy, fact-checked, legitimate information about mental health conditions and treatments and um, you know, read stories of people who've had different kinds of journeys with mental health, mental illness, and treatment, to kind of inspire hope and positivity, but also to know that it's a reliable, valid source, and it's not just, I mean, there are different places you can go online to get health information, and a lot of them you end up with um, a kind of checklist or a sort of list of symptoms, and uh, we wanted to go a little bit more in depth than that, but also make it accessible and and understandable for anyone. So that was the idea. Originally, I got the idea in the early to mid 2000s.
Mhm.
Yeah, the internet was a lot less busy and crowded then, and it's moving at such a fast pace. Um, we we didn't actually launch the site until 2014.
Mm.
And at that point, when the site was launched, it was just kind of a bare bones framework.
Mhm.
In the few years after that, we were working diligently to flesh it out with good content and um, to make it what it is now.
That's great. And I want to talk a little bit more about what the now is, but I want to just build on one of the things you commented on is you said you believe in technology, you see the value of it. I do as well. But in the kind of the present climate of how the internet and companies use it, as you know, not only is it kind of a Wild West, but it's got a bias towards information that hooks people in and gives negative experience of various kinds because it makes people afraid and they then come back for more. And the actual business model of many, not mentioning any specific companies, but the business model is the more we can hook you into coming back, you sell advertising for the eyeballs and the interest that people have. And it's a very different focus than giving good information that actually could solve problems, because then people aren't going to be constantly hooked to come back for more and more and more and more. So be interested if you could go into a little more detail about Webshrink and what you've learned so far since you've begun in terms of both help for the I love the way you describe these two groups, the seekers and the providers, and providing a really a community of exchange where you can both learn and benefit from the interchange. So talk a little bit more about WebShrink and where you are now.
Sure. So WebShrink, again, we're not looking to become a place where we're providing clinical services. We're not a place to go for online therapy, um, or anything like that. And I know there are lots and lots of those sorts of companies popping up. What we are is, again, a resource for seekers. And by seekers, what we really mean is people who are looking for information, answers, um, trying to find find out whether or not they or someone they care about may have a mental health condition, or when is it right to contact a professional and seek uh, professional care. Um, but we have, and for instance, we have a symptom checker, which it presents a series of questions that patients can answer. I mean, visitors of the site can answer. They're not patients. Um, it's kind of my medical background sort of sneaking out there, but
Yeah, I get it.
um, they can you know, answer questions and then be guided towards, you may want to read more about this. You may want to look into this disorder, or this article might be of interest to you based on the answers to your questions. And so we're really all about giving people good quality information and, you know, promoting accurate, true um, uh, 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 information that people can use in a meaningful way. And we don't collect data. We don't, you know, save anything about or track anything about who visits our site. It really is purely intended to help people. On the provider side, we we really want our mission is really to kind of become the go-to place for people looking for answers and for mental health professionals to look to go to and then to find each other. So, you know, we offer providers a page on the site to be to profile themselves, to our visitors, to our audience, um, and backlinks to their own personal website. They can upload a photograph, they can write a bio, or, you know, speak to their specialty areas or their philosophy of care. And we also are about to roll out a fully searchable medication database so that uh, the public, seekers and providers, can utilize that to kind of answer questions about um, not just psychiatric medications, but how they may interact with other medications that people may be taking for other reasons. So we ultimately want to um, give providers the ability to be found in a better way online, um, by people who are specifically have the kind of needs that they can fulfill.
Mm.
So we're planning to also add more resources for professionals in the future, but that's kind of where we're at right now.
Well, it's great. You know, I'll be kind of honest in sharing. I've written about this, so it's not anything I'm bringing out for the first time. But I consider myself in both categories. I consider myself, I call it two-hatter. I've been a professional clinician since 1968 and have had a large practice over the years in various areas of health and well-being. But I also, you know, went through my own problems with both depression and anxiety. My father, you know, I mentioned, had mental health problems himself, took an overdose of sleeping pills at a certain time of my life. And my mother was, you know, extremely anxious and fearful. And so I went through a time of my own life where I had, you know, diagnosable mental health problems that I finally reached out for help. I'm no the own not the only health professional that has had problems, but have tried to either keep it hidden or be, in my case and many others, afraid if I revealed that I had, in my case, bipolar disorder, and was honest in sharing the treatment that I went through and the help that I got, that maybe nobody would want to come and and seek me out anymore if they found out I had problems and that wasn't the case. I think we know that people that have had the problems and have been treated can be even more beneficial. So um,
Yeah, the best quote that I love that kind of sums that up in a very simple way. The best thief makes the best detective.
yeah, it's true. Well, I think there are many levels of that, and I know I've felt that what I've learned in terms of my own recovery and my own health, and I know, for instance, and I'm interested in your medication tracker because when I was starting in treatment for bipolar disorder, as you know, there are many different medications that my psychiatrist was discussing with me, and I wanted to learn as much as I could, both as a health care professional and also, geez, well, what are the effects and what do I need to learn? And so I think all of what you offer, I think, is somewhat unique, at least from my experience, and bringing together seekers and providers and offering something really significant to both. So say you mentioned you got some things coming in uh, the coming year and offerings for both providers and seekers. Could you kind of project ahead a little bit and share what may be coming down the line in the next months and throughout the year?
Sure. I'd like to just speak a little bit to uh, what you were talking about.
Yeah,
My what I believe is the person who would come to Webshrink, um, and I think um, in some of the feedback that we've received in recent years is in fact this is in fact who the the kind of if there's a way to describe who would be the person who would come to Webshrink,
yeah,
and it's anyone who may be experiencing some kind of distress and they're not sure, is this just life? Is this me? Is it a symptom? Is it possibly a disorder? Are there ways that I can get help for this? Um, or um, someone who, let's say, uh, a loved one, a family member, was just admitted to the hospital in some sort of crisis and was given a diagnosis and started on a new medication. And they're wondering what happened. Is this um, are do they have the right diagnosis? Do they have the right treatment? Are we doing the right thing for this person that we love? And you know, or someone who is really looking for um, clarification on what does it all mean, and should I be looking for a professional? What kind of professional? It surprises me still that there are people who don't know the difference between a psychiatrist, a psychologist, a therapist, a counselor. So, that's another goal of ours, is to educate, and
mhm,
help answer those questions. How do I know if I need a psychiatrist or a therapist, and what is the difference? I've worked with all kinds of different professionals over my 25-year career. I've worked in just about every setting. I've worked inpatient hospitals, structured outpatient programs, private practice, which I'm doing now. And I've worked with social workers, psychologists, counselors, drug and alcohol abuse counselors. Um, and everyone has a different background and everyone has a different set of skills and tools to bring. Um, and, I think it's important for people to understand the differences and to understand what direction they want to go and where they're most likely to find the right kind of help.
yeah,
So that's another one of our goals. But to get to your question, going forward, we have an ambitious set of goals for Webshrink.
Mhm.
We would like to, first of all, on the provider side, we would like
Yep.
to add more tools and resources for providers. So we have plans to roll out a telehealth platform. Now, once again, we're not trying to be a service where, we're charging people a fee for therapy and then providing that therapy and, taking a referral fee or a cut of the fee or anything like that. We're just looking to match the right people seeking help with the right providers, and
Mhm.
then giving those providers the ability to connect with those people through our telehealth platform, which is going to be specifically designed for mental health. So it's not a one size fits all. There are unique aspects to and ways that we believe that telehealth can be customized for optimal use in mental health. And being a psychiatrist, I can certainly help inform that. Um, Also, we want to provide a way of, for secure online messaging. Um, Regular text messaging and email is not HIPAA compliant, is not always secure, and we believe that, people need a safe way to communicate with their providers, that's not going to be subject to tracking and
Mhm.
hacking and all that stuff. We want to provide resources for providers to find, to access clinical tools, questionnaire surveys that they can use. So we have a lot on the provider side that we want to develop. On the seeker side, we really want to continue to develop good quality content, up-to-date news and information about latest developments. Um, we have we'll continue to develop the podcast. We want to develop more video, more one of the things we've learned and really, because of the rapid progress online and how fast things change, now everything's about these short snippet videos, and you know there are some people who just don't want to put the time, spend the time, or don't have the time to read an in-depth article. So are there ways that we can get the information out there in that format? So we're working on both sides, the seeker side and the provider side.
I think that's so, I mean, from being in the field, on both sides of the aisle in a way, I see how really unique and valuable what you have been doing and what you're planning to do is for both the people that need and are seeking information and those that are providers that are trying to connect with people that want and need their unique services. So um, to kind of wrap it up for today, I'll share this in a little more detail in more in-depth article that I want to do, but share with our podcast audience how they can reach you and find out more about Webshrink and what's the easiest way to get more information about both what you're offering now and to learn about what will be coming down the pike, because it certainly, from my perspective, seems like a really, really valuable resource for both seekers and providers, and hope more people find out about it and can take advantage of it.
Sure. Well, the website is www.webshrink.com. And there's an About Us page, there's a Contact Us page where you can submit messages, and I'll end up, they'll end up coming directly to me. I've assembled a small team of people that I trust that I've met along the way that are helping me with this project, um, but we are a small team, so the message will come to me. I'll see it.
Right.
I also proofread and edit everything that gets published on the site personally. So um, info@webshrink.com. You can send an email. Uh, so yeah, well, I really appreciate your support and kind words.
Right.
Uh, in conclusion, I would just like to tell your listeners that this project is wholly self-funded up to this point. Um, I have used a lot of my own resources to invest in developing this uh, for all of the reasons that we've talked about here today. Um, we do need some financial help to keep it going and keep growing it. So on the provider side, we offer a subscription for a pretty nominal cost. Um, and I think it's it's well worth it, and I would encourage providers who may be listening to go to our site, webshrink.com, and click the button "List Your Practice" and look at the different options for subscribing.
That's great. Well, I know people that are watching this have found this interesting. I have. I would just underline how unique what you're sharing is. I mean, in the field, there's very few of these programs that actually are led by and founded by professional healers and doctors and healthcare providers, number one. Number two, there's very few programs where you can actually connect with the person directly. And when you say, I actually read all the things that you get and I look at all that information, I know what that takes to do, and I know how unusual that is. So I want to thank everybody who has been watching this. I encourage you to check out the information and to connect with Dr. Bilotti and his program. And we will hopefully be doing more things like this where you can get more information. But thank you for today, and we'll say goodbye for now.
Thank you, Jed.